Hello, this is CIT 371, Linux System Administration. In this video, I'm going to give you your course introduction. So let's begin by describing the course briefly. So CIT 371 was designed with the purpose of furthering your knowledge and skills in administrating Linux systems. So this is not a beginner Linux course necessarily. When you look at the review materials I provided, you won't need to know a ton of prerequisite things, but you'll need to know some. I have assumed that you've taken CIT 171 or something similar from another institution, but basically we're building off a lot of basic knowledge and skills, like basic Linux commands, and then we're applying them in scenarios where you're administrating Linux systems, like you're installing software, or you're managing this program, or you're managing the way monitoring and logging work. So we're basically building off the basics of Linux. If you haven't touched Linux in a long time, if you haven't taken one of those courses in a year or so, no need to worry because, as I just mentioned, there are review materials in there was a module 0 in the Canvas shell. So lab 1's been made very short to give you time to prepare if you need a refresher. So please take advantage of that material in that lab if you need to review your basic Linux skills, because you will need them for this class. I will note that we used Ubuntu in this class. We used to use CentOS. We've moved to Ubuntu now. We used the desktop version of Ubuntu just to let you be able to access your email or Canvas through Firefox if you need to. So this class is pretty unique. We used to just use like a VM or two, just exposed to directly to the NQ network. But now, like 271 and 470, we now give you a sandbox environment. So what that means is that we put your Ubuntu VMs, we give you two in this class, a server and a client, and we place them behind a firewall or gateway, or firewall or router software. We use pfSense for this setup. So basically, you have NQ's network. Behind that, you have your firewall, and then behind that, you have your two Ubuntu VMs. The purpose of doing that is to put them in a private LAN. We isolate them from the production NQ's production network. This is to allow us to teach certain topics that we couldn't otherwise, that would disrupt the NQ network. For example, we can teach directory stuff, domain and directory things. We teach domain stuff in 271. We teach Open LDAP in this class a little bit. So by implementing that behind this pfSense firewall, it prevents DHCP and anything from going out to NQ's network and affecting it. So your pfSense firewall is a DHCP server as well. Your client will get a DHCP address. Your server is actually a statically assigned IP, or has a statically assigned IP address. That's to allow us to route SSH traffic from the firewall to the server. You'll have more information on that in a Canvas page, but yeah, this is a very interesting environment. So one thing to note is when you start a lab, you need to turn on the pfSense firewall first, and then your Ubuntu VMs. Those instructions will be given in every lab. So I do want to note something here. This sentence here is not to imply that I don't want to help you. I do want to help you if you need it, but I do want you to work independently as much as possible in this class. Think of it is I can give you paint by numbers, step-by-step labs that give you everything you need, and if things could be easy that way. But the thing of it is that that's not how the real world works. There aren't labs, there aren't quizzes and exams and stuff. There's you, the computers you're working with, and then the tasks that you need to complete. And you're going to be left on your own to learn independently, or at least work with coworkers. But the thing of it is that the more independently you can work, the more useful you are to your organization and team. So I want you to be able to work independently. I want you to be able to look up articles or use ones I've given you and be able to complete the labs. That is the teaching philosophy I go by, is independent learning. And because there's only so much I can teach you in a class. But if I can teach you the skill, the ability, if I can help train you in the ability to teach yourself and to work by yourself, you will go very far. You can learn almost anything, pretty much. So, yeah, please, when something breaks, try reverting back to a snapshot. Try to troubleshoot yourself before you come to me. But if you do come to me, I will definitely help you. You don't have to worry about that. But as I was just mentioning, I don't really like quizzes and exams. I think in the path, IT degree paths, they aren't very useful because they teach a lower level of knowledge. If you follow Bloom's taxonomy, they apply to a much lower level of learning or knowledge than like applied learning does, like what I do. I make you learn things or create things. That is much higher. That is a much higher level of understanding than just simple quizzes and exams where you can look up the answers on the internet or cram a bunch of information in your head and forget it later. Also, I don't have a midterm of any sort. Just another lab. You also have spring break, by the way, but yeah, I don't do any midterm stuff. Your only assignments in this class are labs and a final. The final is a research project. It's where you're going to write a report and record a video presentation based on a list of topics that you're going to choose from. You're just going to choose one topic. That's all I really want to give you because those are practical assignments that will help you learn how to work on your own, research on your own. So that's the kind of assignments. If you don't like quizzes and exams, well, you're in luck. We don't have those around here. Okay, let's go over the course objectives. So here are the things I want you to be able to do by the time you finish this course. First thing is to be able to perform a bunch of Linux administration tasks. Now, obviously we can't cover absolutely every single administration task there is for Linux, but some that I do cover include software installation, just managing processes, network configurations, enhancing the security of a Linux server, and managing its file system. So that's not all we're teaching, but it gives you a good idea of what to expect. Now, don't be scared when I say this, but there is bash scripting in this class. It's limited to 2 labs. A very small bit of it does appear in a later lab, but it's like making a 1 or 2 line script. It's extremely short. But bash scripting is very important to teach because learning how to automate things saves you a lot of time in the real world. Also, there are things that really need to be solved with scripts. There are problems that have to be solved with scripts, so it's a very important task or concept to teach you. It's not that hard. I don't teach you anything very hard. I just teach the basics of bash scripting, just enough to get you prepared for the actual scripting class you'll have down the road. Assuming that you're in the CIT degree path and you're going to be taking CIT 383 down the road. But scripting is very important, and I provide you all the resources to do it, so you don't need to be scared. If you get stuck, I will be here to help you, but there shouldn't be too much to worry about. Okay, so there is utilizing various Linux commands and software. So we're taking the base Linux knowledge that you've gained from a previous class or your work experience, and you're going to use them for troubleshooting, for containerization, and directory management. These last 2 objectives, this is the crux of this course. This is the main goal by far. These 2 here are more important than these 3. Think of it as, like I said, back there, the previous slide. There is only so much that you can be taught in a 17-week course, or 7 weeks, depending on which version of the course you're in right now. But there's only so much that you can be taught in a very limited amount of time of a college course. The thing of it is that down the road you're going to be expected to learn on your own, and I want to be able to impart that lesson to you as much as I can. I want to be able to build these skills and provide an environment where you can build these skills as much as possible. You've already done this in CIT 271. You're going to further do this in this class. This class is going to have even more independent research compared to 271. I will provide articles still, but you will be expected to find more of them on your own to complete the tasks in the lab. If you can get really good at doing this, you will go very far in the real world. Because in a job, you're not going to have a lab, you're not going to have a quiz. Your boss is going to ask you to do something, or a client will, and you're going to have to figure out how to do it. By making you learn in this mindset right now in this class, in previous classes, you will be better prepared for the real world job you're going to have. And here's the new objective I've added to this course, documentation skills. So I've implemented a wiki software. There's a dedicated VM that you're going to have that will host your wiki articles. So I want you to be able to document things because documentation is one of the most important skills you can have. This is this is a computer class, but it is also a writing class to a point because in the real world, in a computer job, you do need to know how to be able to communicate well. Um, there is a stereotype I know that computer geeks don't know how to communicate very well, but it's not true at all. Really, the thing of it is, as a computer as a full-time employee, as a computer person that works with computers, you really do need to know how to communicate, how to do things, what you've done, how to communicate your work to other people. The best way I can teach that to you is through making you write wiki articles, detailing what you accomplished in a lab and how to do it, so someone else could follow that task or follow those steps to complete what you did. Because I'll be honest with you, I was hired full time on NQ's server team, which I'm currently employed in as of the recording of this video, because I had a lot I had very strong documentation skills. That was actually a job I had as a student worker, was writing wiki articles with the same software that I've implemented in this course. If you can stand out by being a very good documenter, you will go very far in the work world. So, or so yeah, this is why I'm pushing writing and documentation very hard in this course, because I want you to be able to stand out when you go out there in the real world. Okay, course schedule. So I'm just going to briefly go over the topics that we're going to cover in this class. Lab 1 is very short. It's just software installation. It's very short because there's a Linux review lab. I do want you to take the time you need to refresh yourself in Linux if you need it. So that's why Lab 1 is so short. Services and process management was where we're going to start using the wiki. It's not a very long or difficult lab per se, but yeah, you'll just need to be prepared to start using the wiki here. Then we're going to do bash scripting, labs or weeks 3 and 4. Um, we just covered the same topics, going to use the same slides for these weeks. Bash scripting isn't going to be terribly hard. The labs are pretty short and they're pretty simple. I provide a lot of documentation for you to learn how to script, both through the lecture slides I have as well as the supplemental material I have. So you should be covered pretty well. I will tell you, this is the topic that most students struggle the most with, but not many do in general. You should be fine in this part if you put your head to it and just use the resources I got. But I will help you if you need to, if you need it. We're going to configure some network configuration troubleshooting alongside a new topic, system troubleshooting. I was very excited about this one. You're going to learn some commands and how to troubleshoot things. Very important skill there. Unfortunately, we don't have a lab that actually simulates a problem for you to fix. Unfortunately, we don't really have that set up right now. Hopefully down the road we can implement it. We're going to cover Docker containerization. This is an important lab because you need to make sure you have Docker working to perform the monitoring lab and OpenLDAP lab because we use Docker containers in them. So please make sure you do a good job in this lab. We're also going to configure or study security and firewall management, logging and monitoring, file sharing, file system RAID management. Another new topic is backups and cron jobs. Another really important Linux topic I felt was missing in the previous iteration of the course that I helped Brad Thomas design. So I'm really excited about this new topic. Another new topic I added was Open LDAP implementation. I wanted to cover LDAP and directory structure, so that topic's here. We also use a container to set up LDAP. It's a very interesting lab. It's pretty simple. Just more than anything to help you learn directory structure. You will have spring break. Nothing will be assigned at all. You just have it off. Week 16 technically will be off, but I'm combining it with 17 to give you your final assignment. Everything's open from the beginning, by the way. You can work on it as fast as you want. But the final assignment will be relegated, or the last 2 weeks of the class will be dedicated to catching up if you need it, and then the final assignment, which is just a research project. So that's everything you got to look for this semester. Hope it looks good. Um, Definitely will take suggestions for future topics if you feel the need to. I will definitely want this course to keep improving as we go on. So let's go over the wiki article requirements a little bit. So you're going to use the software called Wiki.js. You'll have a dedicated server called Wiki.js serve. That VM is where you're going to write your articles. The software is already installed for you. There's a home page that tells you how to use the software. I will say that most labs will require you to write wiki articles based on your work. The first lab and the review lab do not require this, just to give you some extra time to onboard yourself into this course. The purpose of these wiki articles for your submissions are for you to recite your work in a manner that another user could read and use to replicate what you did. In other words, you're going to write an instruction manual on what you did every lab. So it's important for you to record what you've done each lab as you do it, so you have the ability to write your wiki article correctly. Now, it's going to take a little practice. You're going to need to make sure you take the time to do this right. That's why I only give you lab assignments in this class, because I heavily emphasize you doing a good job in this, because it's your submission. So, um, yeah, as I said before, the reason I push this is because you need to be able to document well when you work in IT. Um, Instruction on how to access this VM's webpage to write your wiki articles, as well as how to use the software to do so, are included in instruction documents on Canvas. Please do look at those pages to make sure you know how to do this. By the way, the page on how to access your VMs is also in Canvas. Let's go over how the labs are going to be laid out in this class. So, unlike other labs that you may have taken before, these are not step by step. I provide a common structure among all the labs just to make them easy to follow. So I start with an introduction, just talks about the main objectives of the lab. Typically, it's going to tell you what major tasks you're going to complete. The labs are separated into parts, so I have them, each section labeled like part 0, part 1, and then a subtitle. But parts 0, 0, and 1 are unique in that they are to remind you to take a snapshot of your VMs, the VMs you use in that lab, and to test how to test your internet connectivity. The thing of it is, with the isolated or sandbox environment we use, you gotta follow specific steps to make sure your internet connectivity works, which you're gonna need for installing software and so forth. I do want to note, I highly emphasize the importance of taking snapshots. If something breaks in a lab and you don't have a snapshot, you can be in real serious trouble in this class. I make you take snapshots. I hate to be a bit of authoritative in this manner, but I do absolutely 100% require you to take snapshots, and you can't get out of it, because if you don't do that, you can cause some very serious problems and end up taking up IT's time trying to make you new VMs. So I want to avoid that as much as possible. So that's why I emphasize it. I do want to note that if you don't provide a snapshot, the snapshots you're assigned to take, you will lose 15 points in your lab. So please make sure you take these snapshots. I'm not trying to do this to be mean. I'm trying to do this to make sure we leave IT alone as much as possible, and that if you end up breaking something, or something goes wrong, outside of your control goes wrong, we can go back to a known good state and be able to save you time from having to redo stuff. So every other part in the lab, besides this bottom one here, all parts 2 onward, will have the actual task you need to complete in the lab. Note that the bottom of each of these parts 2 onward, will require you to take a snapshot or screenshot. So if you have the snipping tool in Windows, you'll need to take a screenshot of all your work. Please don't use print screen. I want a specific screenshot of what you're taking to make sure it's clear. You also need to take a screenshot of the snapshot you take, by the way. But taking screenshots is a big part of this class, improving your work, and they'll be in your wiki article. So finally, at the bottom of your lab document, you have submission instructions. So each lab will have specific instructions on what's going to be expected of you in your wiki article. For example, there will be a little writing on you need to write a little bit about this topic that you study in this lab. You'll need to provide the instructions, and then some other steps you'll need to complete. There are some general requirements each wiki article will need, and there's a document on Canvas for that as well. Before we end, I want to take a little time to go over how to research Linux tasks. So what am I talking about here? So when you're going through the lab, you'll be asked to do something like, hey, I want you to install the tree program, but I don't tell you how to do it. So you're left with figuring out how to do it. The way you go about these tasks is performing Google searches. Google is your best friend in this class, by the way. Google is your best friend because it'll tell you how to find articles to complete tasks. So this is an example. So let's say I ask you to create a user in Ubuntu 22.04. So that's what you're going to search up. It's very important that when you go about searching how to do things, that you emphasize the operating system, because Linux has many different versions or distros. we use Ubuntu, so you gotta make sure, and Ubuntu 22 specifically, so you gotta emphasize that in your search. Then you gotta review your searches. Um, AI might come. Now we have the point. Now we're at the point now where AI is going to try to give you an answer. It may or may not be right. Um, so you got to be kind of careful. You also got to be careful that certain articles that come up may not be the best. Unfortunately, I've noted that search results over the years have gotten worse. The first article may or may not be the one you're going to end up using. So do be diligent out there and do your research. Unfortunately, this is what's going to happen to you in the real world. It's best that you prepare for it now. But the making your search as best as possible, as clear as possible, is how you avoid having to search hundreds of articles for something. After you look up a good article, just read it and then scroll through it to find what you need. So, for example, if you want to create a user, look up the article, and then, oh, here's the command to do it. I'll put that in my, or write that into my Linux VM. So that's basically the, this is the steps that you're going to take whenever you're working on labs. Before we end, I'm going to go over some research sources for Linux. So there's many different types of sources you're going to consult in the class. One important one is man pages. These are basically just manuals for a command. If you can look up man pages on your Linux VM, but you can also use these websites right here. These are actually online man pages. You're going to be using man pages when you need detailed information on how to use a specific Linux command. There's also OS documentation. So we use the Ubuntu operating system. Ubuntu actually has documentation on their website on how to do various things on Ubuntu. You're going to want to make sure you use the pages from version 22.04. So there is product documentation online for Ubuntu. If you do a search for it, it may be one of the search results that comes up. Like when you're searching how to do something, it may actually Ubuntu's official documentation may be one of the articles that comes up. These are pretty good for when you need to configure a particular service or program that Ubuntu is compatible with. Probably the most common source you're going to run into is the how-to video or article. These are really useful because they tell you step by step how to perform specific tasks. So like if you want to install Apache, you look up on the internet how to install Apache on Ubuntu 22.04, and then you probably have like a Linux Hint or TechMint or DigitalOcean article that'll explain how to do it. These are by far the most helpful sources you can use in this class. You're going to be wanting to look for these a lot. Very helpful when you want to complete multi-step tasks. So that's the end of my introduction for this class. I very much appreciate you watching. Hope it gives you a good idea of what to expect. If you need any help or have any questions, please be sure to reach out to me. I will be more than happy to answer you. I hope you enjoyed this class, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.